The art of Final Fantasy from Yoshitaka Amano. He is the father of the series in the art department and is involved in making all iconic logos. Today we're going to look at his character designs and official illustrations of Final Fantasy 4 and 5. Final Fantasy 4 set the stage of narrative plot progression and character development in role-playing games. The story starts off as Cecil, a Dark Knight who is captain of the Red Wings, and his mission is to steal the Water Crystal. Questioning the motives of his king, he is stripped from his ranks. Nevertheless, the king orders him and the commander of dragoons, Kane, to deliver a ring to the village of Mist. There, they find a young summoner who is in distress and uses the power of Titan that splits the village in two. Although she is wounded, Cecil takes her under his care and protects her from kidnappers. While his beloved Rosa and other travelers join his cause, his journey soon crosses the new leader of the Red Wings, Golbez. He is on a campaign to steal the rest of the elemental crystals without remorse. The team tries to defend the Wind Crystal. However, after Rosa got captured and the party got separated, Cecil reinvents himself to turn towards the light by becoming a paladin. When the team reunites again, they confront Golbez once and for all. Amano likes to work with colored pencils, ink, acryls and watercolor, even though he himself was quite clear that he doesn't know how to describe his style. He did mention he was always interested in surrealism. And actually, I think this is what his style is based on. He uses sketchy curved strokes and varies between the line thickness to create a clear silhouette, which is one of his main strengths. If we look at the character proportions, they do resemble normal human body sizes, with recognizable anatomical muscle groups. The face and eye structure are unique, with most of the time using long, thin whimpers and dark irises. He loves to pose his characters in floaty ways that sometimes are even obscure. I think not a lot of artists do actually. I don't know about you, but in my eyes, his style and composition is the embodiment of fantasy, especially the designs of the clothing. The style reminds me a bit of ancient Arabic royalty that uses a variety of colored cloths, accessories and trinkets. Amano stated in the interview that when he draws, he's totally committed and he can't remember what he's actually drawing. A state of flow, so to say. Also, he generally loses interest in his works that he made in the past. To me, an artist's style is like a signature of the mind's eye. The more experienced one is, the clearer the image gets, and the better it is expressed on paper. The super deformed art, aka chibi art, was done by Kazuko's Shibuya, which will be more easily translated to pixel art than the full-blown concept designs, as they only showed the distinct elements of the original pieces. Furthermore, the pixel artists were given the freedom to change things like hair color, to give them more appeal and better in-game silhouette. Aside from this, Amano's monster and boss art did translate directly to the main screen, and therefore are static images that are quite different than the heroes. Unlike his character art, more often than not, he uses one dominant dark color as the base. Most enemy monsters and humanoid figures are bizarre in their own right. A standard fit for a Final Fantasy game. That said, if we objectively look at the designs, Final Fantasy doesn't have a coherent world in the monster department, except for the main artist. To elaborate, sometimes you fight the giant bird next to a meat-eating plant and think, yep, that's Final Fantasy. Random encounters are quite literal in this sense. And because I grew up with it, I just accepted it. However, if I had to compare it with Chrono Trigger for example, they designed a way more coherent enemy style in the world. Anyways, due to the massive enemy database, they can make crossovers from previous installments. And as a fan, I love this concept. Back to Amano. Most of his dragons are elongated, which reminds me of how Chinese folklore portrayed them. He also painted the hovercraft and the Enterprise. Personally, I think his lunar whale design was clever. In addition, he worked on Final Fantasy 4 the after years to some degree. What I find interesting is that Akira Oguro tried to adapt his own illustrations to represent Amano's style. In all fairness, I think he did a great job at it, especially the female characters. He mainly uses shadow to emphasize a 3D look. When it's subtle like here, I think it's really effective. Also, the hair contains a lot of volume with interesting shapes and curves. That said, some of his original pieces are a hit and miss. Most of them are more realistic and push this 3D approach a bit too much for my personal taste. Nevertheless, he does a great job with composition and scenery in most of them. Some stilizations didn't age well in my opinion. It just reminds me a bit of an old 80s movie poster somehow. But to each their own. Final Fantasy 5 leveled up the job system by adding customization with mixed abilities, equipment and stat transfers. The story follows the young adventurer Bartz, who together with his trustworthy companion Boko travel around the world. After a meteor impact near him, he investigates the site and saves a girl named Lena from goblins. Moreover, they meet a confused man who calls himself Galef. After the group tries to get to the nearest town, they are forced to explore a cave that leads to a pirate's den. As they try to steal a ship, they meet the leader Ferris. She joins the team and takes them with the ship that is pulled by the sea serpent Sildra towards the Wind Temple. Here they learn that all the elements need to be restored, and thus they set out to do so and find all the corresponding crystals. Soon they meet a world-threatening warlock known as Xdev, who has the power to warp time and space. Although his art style didn't change much, there's a slight softer touch in his works, especially with the females. He likes to draw them with more gentle hair than in his earlier works. To emphasize, he normally encapsulates the hair with line art. Now, he leaves gaps open for our own imagination. In a general sense, he embraces asymmetrical design, with clothing having different patterns, colors and lengths. I personally think this is pretty cool, because most character artists do tend to favor symmetry as seen in daily life. His coloring style is vibrant, using mainly watercolors to create lighter and darker tones. Without a doubt, the white skin and blonde hair of his characters is his biggest trademark. However, this is one flaw that Amano is known for as well, especially seen in his earlier works. Some of his characters are way too similar. Here, let me show you some art of Terra and Lacrima. And you might think, who the F is that? Well, she's from a game known as Rebus, also known as Land of Cardia. My point is, sometimes his character designs are quite hard to distinguish from each other. Heck, I've made multiple mistakes when categorizing his works to artwork videos like these. Just like in the previous game, Amano designed the bosses as well, and as far as I can tell, he seldom draws multiple full-blown illustrations of them. Now, he has different angles and even awesome action scenes of them. During development, Tetsuya Nomura did redraw the main characters, which made a great impression on his peers. Besides this, his main job was to draw the enemy concept art of the monsters and bosses. Notable mentions are his take on Gilgamesh, Omega, and Minotaur, whose design was also used in Final Fantasy VIII. Moreover, he made artwork on Bahamut and a very creepy carbuncle with shoes. Paris was created by Hironobu Sakaguchi, who based her concept as a cross-dressing princess in hiding. Just like in Final Fantasy VI, Kazuko Shibuya made all the super deformed artwork of the main characters. Only this time, also their respective job outfits. There were multiple artists involved during re-releases and other content, such as the Square Enix trading card game Opus, with some works from Final Fantasy V by Yukihiro Kajimoto. The re-releases of DDS were done by Airi Yoshioka. She shows her fair share of the Amano impression as well. I'm Fantasy Light Novel author GP1st, and I honestly lost count of how many times I played Final Fantasy V. I just love the job system so much. Needless to say, Bravely Default's demo instantly hooked me. If you want to see more of Amano's work, such as Final Fantasy VI or 9, you know where to find me.